Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 252 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Go and check out our second book. It's called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. That is available on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, so many students have asked me if there was anything that we can do about the long wait time that we're seeing for appointments in counseling centers all across the country. And one of the things that we've been working on over the last year is a new app that's going to be coming out this fall. It's called Mind Health. And what we want to do is we want to provide fraternities, sororities, and universities with a robust mind health program that makes it easy and convenient for your members and students to get the help that they need. And it's got to be relevant to their identities. Also, when they want it and where they want it. We all know that there's stigma involved with the counseling center for some students. So using an app in the privacy of your dorm room and accessing resources or even telehealth is a good thing. Students will take a 1-minute self-administered survey that'll help members and students to identify what their challenges are. And it doesn't assume that everybody needs therapy, like some of the options that I'm currently seeing out there. After completing the survey, they'll be guided to different types of support options that are specific to this student's needs. Whether they want to work on their own or connect with a professional, we'll be able to guide them there and help them start their journey to better mind health. So look for more information this fall, but I figured I'd throw it out there since our topic today is going to be all about mental health. Now, we have 3 amazing speakers with us today. Our first is Edson O'Neale. When you see Edson walk into a room, your first perception might be that he is a strong, confident, empowered Phi Alpha fraternity man, but there's more to Edson than meets the eye. His stature may seem imposing to you, but in his life he has felt small. His voice is clear as a bell, but he's often felt unheard. He is very present, but he has been made to feel invisible. Yet through all, he's tried his best to be his best. He's overcome what he's felt. He's reshaped his narrative, and he's mental health first aid certified. So we are so glad to have you with us. Welcome, Edson. Yeah. So our next speaker is Brit Turpack. She is a Los Angeles-based mental health advocate. She's a TEDx speaker, a movement teacher. She's a Delta Gamma sorority sister and a representative of NAMI. She is on a mission to make the world a better place by helping people prioritize their mental and spiritual health as much as they do their physical health. She's passionate about sharing her personal journey and connecting with you while being of service to others. Health is everything to Brit. So we're talking about brain health, body health, soul health, and all that she does and teaches is to help others bring their mind, their body, and soul into alignment to live their best life and have some fun in the process. Welcome, Brit.
Hi.
Hey. And our final speaker, of course, is Greg Vogt. Greg is a professional mental health speaker with Greek University. He is also mental health first aid certified, and he's a brother of Kappa Alpha Order. He speaks in partnership with Active Minds, which is the nation's premier nonprofit organization for mental health among young adults. Greg is the author of a great book. It's called The Battle Against Yourself. He also serves as a board member for the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance in California. His keynote addresses include mental health during life transitions, suicide prevention, strategies to start a conversation, and also how to seek support. Here's another really cool fact. He's going to be a new dad very soon, and the baby is on the way. Welcome, Greg Vogt.
Thank you. Good to be here. 3.5 weeks. 3.5 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
3.5 weeks. I mean, this baby is practically here.
We are on the
Get
5.
your sleep, Greg. Get your sleep.
Yeah, no kidding, right? We're on the 5-yard line, as I like to say. So
You are totally on the 5-yard line. Oh man, this is so much fun. You are going to absolutely love being a dad. It's going to change your life, but for the better. I promise you, it is the best thing ever. It goes by quickly though, so you got to enjoy every moment.
That's the plan. We're excited, man. We're super grateful for it. So,
Well, good for you, man. I'm proud of you. I think that's awesome. All right. Well, listen, let's start with Edson. Edson, one of the articles that I read over the last couple of weeks, it was a new study that was collected by the Healthy Minds Network between 2013 and 2021. It was over 350,000 students at 300 campuses, and it revealed just how common depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues are, and how these issues all take a toll on students of color unequally. And they found that the mental health of college students across the United States has been on a consistent decline for all 8 years of the data analyzed, with an overall 135% increase in depression and 110% increase in anxiety from 2013 to 2021. So Edson, why do you think that this is happening on college campuses today? What's going on, especially for students of color?
Yes. Thank you for the question, Mike. Thank Britt and Greg for being here and doing this very important talk. It's very important. Before I do go with the talk, though, I do want to say something and share my condolences to the individuals that were affected in the shooting at the grocery store in Buffalo. 10 Black people were killed. And then obviously the shooting that took place in Uvalde, Texas last week at the elementary school, those children and 2 teachers that were murdered. I just want to send my condolences and, just want to say that, those are tragic stuff that occurred. And I hope that we can get past this. And I say that because that is a big part of why depression and anxiety has gone up, is because of fear. People are very fearful of the world we live in. I'm scared. I'll stay here and admit that I'm very scared of the world that we live in. I was talking to some friends last night and they said, Edson, I'm scared to go to the grocery store now. When I send my kids to school, will I see them at the end of the day? The stuff that has been occurring over the course of the last few years, with the pandemic, with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and all the other shootings that have occurred, the mass shootings, and especially the ones that took place the last few weeks, the one in Buffalo and the one in Texas, I really felt hit a lot of people home. That it was really like, okay, this is enough. We need to do something. So fear is a big part of why I personally feel why students in colleges are getting more depressed, because they're just fearful of what the world brings and the unknown sometimes. And with that also brings the pressure that these students deal with what society brings. There's so much pressure for these students to succeed or to do well, or they have to be a certain stature, or they have to be they have to dress a certain way, they have to look a certain way, so because of those pressures, when they feel they're not meeting that standard, they're like, well, I can't meet the standard, so I'm not enough. I'm not valued enough. I don't value myself, and I don't think I'm worth anything because I'm not meeting those standards. So there's always this talk of the students now during the course of the last few years, they're entitled, and they don't want to work for anything and they don't want to be given anything, but we forget the pressures they have to deal with, with society and what it brings to the table now. So because of that, they have this pressure to always have to succeed and always have to do well. And a lot of that also comes from bullying. You mentioned how depression has increased and anxiety has increased with college students. Bullying has increased as well. I read an article the other day that bullying has increased almost close to 40% from 2016 to 2019. And a lot of that comes from cyber bullying. When you can go online through social media and post pictures to make fun of people or say things about people, when you have an app like Yik Yak, where you can post anonymously and say stuff about people negatively, and no one will be able to see who said it, it really it hurts. It hurts people. And when you're consistently being told you're not enough, you're not gonna make it, you're not gonna amount to anything, students tend to start to believe in it, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna amount to anything, so I'm not worth it. So when they always hear that, it's hard for them to really get past through that. Now, when it comes to students of color, it really deals with the stigma that people of color deal with the don't show your weakness, don't be vulnerable, hold it in, toughen up, do all these different things, because we want to show that we value, our lives matter, and that, we are able to really make it. But in that, we're hurting ourselves because we're holding and bottling up all our emotions, and we're scared to share how we're feeling. Now, I do feel that stigma is changing. I do feel that people of color, especially men of color, are opening up more. I mean, men in general. I think Greg can attest that men are opening up more about their mental health. They're seeking professional help. You know, um, it's funny. I was my friends and fraternity brothers a couple of years ago, and we were all talking about our therapists and what we talk about and how seeking therapy has opened our eyes and stuff like that. So I do feel the stigma is changing, but what I do not see changing is access and resources for people of color. That's not really changed or not really there. So when students of color want to seek help or want to seek information to help better themselves, the resources are not there. And if it is there, there's a lack of education in what those resources are. So because of that, that 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 is what adds to the depression and anxiety for students of color, because they don't have access to those resources. And if they do, they have no idea how to access those resources. So that's why I feel these are things that kind of contribute to students with their depression and their anxiety rising. And I want to end by saying that we have to try and do a better job of really helping our students and younger generation really dealing with their mental capacity. They just don't have, or they tell themselves that they don't have the capacity to deal with these things mentally and to have that mental strength to really push through and deal with these situations. So as educators, as professionals, as parents, I do feel we should do a better job of having conversations and providing that guidance and resources to help them given that mental capacity. Obviously, it is going to be on them to really push it forward and to really own it, own their story, own who they are, build that confidence to go through the struggles and to go through adversity. But I do feel we need to do a better job of really helping and preparing them to deal with that mental adversity, because it's tough. But I can do it, Greg can do it, Britt can do it, Mike, you can do it, anyone can do it, but we just need to really help them provide those resources and to help them build a confidence to assure them that you'll be okay. It's gonna be tough, but it'll be okay. So those are my thoughts.
That's a good segue, starting to talk about resources. Hey, Britt, more students overall are seeking help and access to mental health services on college campuses than they were, say, back in 2013, which is great news. But the prevalence of mental health issues seems to be outpacing the number of students that are finding and receiving support, like Edson was alluding to. There was also a change in treatment rates among students of color in the context of COVID-19 and the pandemic. So basically, treatment declined the most in 2020 among Asian, Pacific Islander, and Black students. So given the impact of the pandemic, which, we're talking about isolation and things like that, as well as racism on this community over the last 2 years, what can we do about the spike in anxiety, the spike in depression on college campuses? Does it mean that maybe we need to promote diversity among the counseling center staff so that way students see themselves in the counseling center staff?
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Edson, for your input there. I feel like there's 10 different things that I want to put a pin in all of this conversation thus far. First and foremost, I was actually, this is kind of going off script a little bit, Mike, but I will circle back around to what you just asked. I was doing a segment. I am a TV correspondent on KTLA every month. And for May Mental Health Awareness Month, I had this realization where I was like, I know we're having this mental health conversation, but really, I think we should just be teaching kindness. Like, yes, we need to have the mental health conversation, but really it's the kindness behind it and the importance of awareness that we just never know what people are going through. And so I laid that as the foundation for all of the mental health conversation that I do love to have. Statistically speaking, 75% of mental health conditions will come up for a human between the ages of 18 and 24. So yes, this college age, simply from all the life transitions. Now, this fact and statistic was provided by NAMI pre-pandemic. So add on just, the global pandemic that we all experience, the fact that we are living in 2022 and consumption is at an all-time high. And when I mean consumption, I mean all of us, especially college students, are being bombarded all day, every day, and our nervous system is not able to properly keep up with all of it. And I say that because regardless of whether or not you live with a mental health condition, my biggest thing here is like, we all have mental health and we all have stress and anxiety. So, I'm not a medical professional and I may not have the exact answers as to how students can, access resources being on campuses. But what I can do and what I do know how to do is help teach tools that everybody can use, especially students can use and implement into their lives. And I think that for me is the biggest piece, is the education piece and getting tangible tools into these students' hands and the awareness as to what they are to start implementing them. But like Edson said, like there's going to need to be some agency behind people actually wanting to, practice and implement them to help push the needle forward.
Good point there. And there's also a what am I trying to say here? Like a will that people need to step into being kind. Just like going back to kindness. Like kindness is at the forefront of how we can move forward as a society and how individual mental health can improve. But it does take basically a human to human choice as well. And so, there's grace. Like, of course, some of us slip up, some of us, have difficulties and have bumps in the road, but just like whether you're talking about resources, whether you're talking about kindness, there is an aspect of accountability there as well. So I just wanted to chip in on that one.
I love that point. Maybe we need to be talking about kindness. Maybe it's really, that's where it all starts, right?
People with kindness,
how that relates to mental health.
Well, and it's not like one is better than the other, but I think they just go so hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And, when we have these conversations, or this conversation specifically around mental health, it just goes to paint the picture like, look, I live with anxiety, severe anxiety and depression, and I am at a point now where it is so manageable, and I feel so grateful for all the work that I have done personally with myself. But there was a point in my life where it wasn't manageable, and Mike knows, like I was living out of my car, and on the exterior, people are like, oh no, you're 5'8", you're blonde, you're this, you're that, you're bubbly, you're friends with so many people, she's fine. And really, I was over there being like, I'm not fine, I need help. And it goes back to assumption and expectation and just, keeping your side of the street clean and not making judgments so quickly because you don't know what somebody else is going through, whether it's a male or a female or whatever race they are or whatever background they're from. Like, you don't know. All you know is yourself.
That's all great points. Now, Greg, another article that I read recently, it was probably like a couple of weeks ago, and it was talking about a recent Gallup study where a third of currently enrolled students who are pursuing a bachelor's degree reported that they had considered withdrawing from their program for a semester or more over the past 6 months. So that tells me that if we want to retain our college students, we're going to have to bring the mental health conversation to them. And maybe they're not finding the time to address their mental health needs. Maybe they're just not motivated to seek help. So how do we bring the resources to the students instead of waiting for them to come to us?
Good question, and a big problem to solve, and not a problem to solve overnight, that's for sure. There's different layers to this. The first one is on-campus counseling, and in my speaking where I travel to different universities, there have been multiple universities that I will not name names that have said our student to therapist ratio on campus is like 1 to 2,500 or 1 to like 800 or 1 to 4,000. And I'm like, I hate to, like, in my head, I was like, that's a recipe for disaster, So that's one elephant in the room. And I mean, the first thing is to identify a problem and then find a solution. That one's fairly apples to apples. Like, the problem is there and the staff is, needed to improve, right? So that's one area. But we also need to realize that therapy and counseling is not for everybody. And there are different forms of mental health treatment or self-care or whatever it is to improve your mental stability. And maybe it's people, maybe it's hobbies, maybe it's therapy, maybe it's medications, maybe it's your faith life, like exercise, whatever it is. It's finding what works for you. But I think another aspect of the resource umbrella, other than counseling on campus, is bringing peer-to-peer support groups.
Yes.
So Active Minds, I'm a speaker with Active Minds as well. They're one of the largest mental health organizations in the country, just like Mike shared earlier. And they have a presence on over 1,000 different campuses across the country. And the thing is here's the key. It's not top down. It's not like corporate America. It's not like teacher to student. It is a level playing field of a group of, let's say, random, but you know what I mean? Not random, but a just collection of some odd students on campus who are interested and maybe need help themselves, or maybe they don't need help themselves. Maybe they just want a community or want to learn more about how they can support somebody else. And they gather together and they build sort of a mental health family in a way. So there's like organizations like that. Another one is Dbsa, Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. They're the largest peer support community specifying in folks who live with mood disorders in the United States. But also, like, let's just say you're a person who doesn't want to plug into something like that because of the name or because of the stereotype. It's kind of taking a different approach. And how do we bring the conversation into the already existing parts of campus? So fraternities and sororities, athletics, heck, your math or science class, right? Like, how do we make it normal within the sort of already pre-existing conditions of society? And I think that is just individual leadership. Are you willing to kind of be the first to share and to speak up? And maybe it's one-on-one with a classmate that nobody will ever see, or it won't ever go public, but having the belief and the trust that is enough, that's enough to potentially help and maybe even save somebody's life. So that's what I would say is, counseling, we need more bandwidth, support groups that are mental health focused, and then bringing the conversation / normalizing the friendship to friendship aspect of mental health in the already existing parts of college campuses.
Man, I love that answer. I think that's phenomenal. And that's kind of where, I was coming from with the app, is to say, the best campus counseling center, the best one in the country, would be able to service roughly 20% of the college population. So where does that leave the other 80%? that maybe they just need resources. I'm not saying that every one of them needs a therapist, but maybe they need some resources when they're struggling. We know that mind health is this continuum, right? Where you have the peaks and the valleys. And so when you're in that valley, where can you go? And I think your peer-to-peer answer, I think, is phenomenal. I think that's a great solution for people to go and check out and to start building. I think that's phenomenal. Now, Edson, 76% of those.
Wait. Can I hop in?
Go for it. Yeah.
Sorry. If you didn't hear me shout when Greg mentioned peer support, because I, have the peer support background from NAMI, but I really want to emphasize and share how much I love that, because I really do think peer support breaks down the barrier to entry for people asking for help. And with my experience, asking for help is the hardest part. So I just celebrate. Yes, I celebrate what Greg said. And, to your point with individual leadership, like it does come down to that, but just the simplicity of teaching these positive coping strategies and tools of even, placing one hand, obviously I love well, you guys don't know, but Mike knows I love meditation. You don't have to sit down and meditate for 20 minutes, but you can place one hand on your heart, one hand on your stomach, come back to your breath and just create a moment of pause, which helps bring everything back down. And those are skills and tools that can be taught and implemented everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I like it.
I second that.
Now, Edson, 76% of those who are pursuing a bachelor's degree who have considered stepping out, they report that they did so because of emotional stress. They talked about COVID-19 and the isolation. They talked about the cost of attendance at school. They talked about coursework difficulty. Those were kind of the next three most often reported reasons students considered dropping out. So how do we make this conversation that we're talking about right now, how do we make that a priority in terms of investment for a university in high quality mental health and academic support programming for students? Because obviously if the students are getting a 3 or 4 week wait time at the counseling center, that's going to be too long for most of the students that I'm speaking to in the audience when I'm speaking at, on these different stages. So how do we make it a priority for the university? And you've worked at a university. Tell us.
Yeah, man. Individuals might feel that universities might not be taken as a priority, and they might not be taken as a priority because they might not be unaware of how bad mental health is with certain students on their campuses. So I would definitely advise that the counseling services, academia, so the faculty that are seeing these things happening with our students, our student leaders, primarily our student government, really speak up and really make universities aware this is not just a student problem, it's a university problem. So this is something that we have to address, and how we have to have these conversations and how we can address these situations to help our students stay in college and to be able to build a confidence to really achieve their goals and their dreams of why, and reminding them of their why and why they're going to college. A lot of the things that Greg and Britt kind of said is a lot of things that I feel will be helpful in providing in having those conversations. Talking about how many counselors do we have on campus? Should we add more counselors? That peer-to-peer, that's Britt, I second that. That is something that is amazing, to pair students with individuals that either look like them or feel the same way, because a big reason why students get depressed or they get into their funks or they want to drop out or they feel the way they feel is because we ultimately feel that we're going through this alone. We feel that we are alone. So to put individuals in peer groups, to where they can share their stories, can open up to one another, can kind of be a support system for one another. It'll provide an atmosphere to where they're going to feel I'm not alone. So I have someone I can go to in order to help me kind of get out of my funk. So it creates a space, an atmosphere for vulnerability. and it creates a way for students to kind of feel that they're being heard, whether it's by their peers, whether it's by their faculty, whether it's by administration, just so to make them understand and feel that they're being heard, that they're being supported, and we're here to help you to get through this. So that's some ways I feel that can help build the conversations. If also in regards to resources and maybe some events, this is my student activities kind of boiling over now, maybe having more like mindfulness events or events that are more geared towards mental health and mindfulness. Maybe you can have events throughout a whole year and have a letter represent a theme for what you're doing. So M can be something, I can be ice cream something, or just different things to do to promote mental health, mindfulness, self-care, anything of that nature. Britt, I heard you're big into yoga, maybe providing more yoga events, having athletics, promoting more exercising and nutrition and different things of that nature, because all of that kind of fits in to health-wise, so just a few things or events that I thought of that, you can maybe do, having a mindfulness week, bringing speakers like myself, Greg, Britt. I had to throw that plug in there. I had to.
No, I want to second this. I love this. A mindfulness week. I'm so here for that.
So
every university needs a mindfulness
a
week.
mindfulness week, so, just different ideas. And if students are trying to use resources of meeting with counselors and are unable to speak with counselors because the bandwidth is just not there, maybe working with counseling services outside of your campus and being able to provide resources for them to see counselors outside of campus, whether it's telehealth or maybe providing transportation for them to go see them in person. Maybe providing more staff or faculty to maybe serve as mental health first aiders. And as mental health first aiders, we're not here to, prescribe or to give medication or do anything, but we can be there to serve as a support and, to help provide those resources. So maybe having more mental health first aiders on your campus where students can just go to for that support and just have an ear to where they can voice their concerns, I think will also be another resource that universities can invest in to help them really push the needle forward in providing more support for mental health for our students on campuses.
Those are great suggestions. And since Greg was talking about the elephants in the room, one of them is bandwidth that Greg brought up. I think the other elephant in the room is the fact that we can't quantify just how big the problem is. I feel like if we want to fix it, we also have to quantify how big is the problem. And I'm not sure that all the universities really know that. So I think that's another elephant in the room that I think at some point we're going to have to tackle. Now, Britt, we're talking about you. We're talking about Pilates. We're talking about yoga. We're talking about meditation. Talk to our audience about how helpful that has been for you and also the students that you've worked with to address their mental health needs.
I love movement so much. And with movement, I also include meditation in that because that's breath. And I do believe breath is movement in the body, even in stillness. It has been personally the most effective tool for my mental health journey during my journey of healing and recovery and also post. And I loved to back up to the conversation what Greg had pointed out, being like, therapy may not be for everyone. And I'm so glad you said that because I think there is a general assumption that it is. And I support therapy, but guess what? It wasn't for me. And it was the movement space, and it was the yoga, and it was the meditation, and it was seeing my chiropractor and my acupuncturist regularly that really helped me. And so why I love movement, especially with students on college campuses, is because it opens you up, like it cracks you open metaphorically and allows messages and allows things that you can teach to land in a way and have people to actually physically have an experience to feel something. And I think it goes back to that idea of feeling, in my opinion, which is can be so effective in a positive way where you can get someone out of one space and into another. And with Pilates or with yoga and meditation, like, you have to be so present. There are activities that really force you to be in the moment. And yes, you may have other thoughts, and you may be thinking like about homework or a final or a test or lunch or dinner or whatever it may be, or a date. But at the same time, you constantly are checking yourself and having to bring your mind, body, heart back into the same space. And like, when you are in that space of alignment, like I call it, that's really your place of power. And in my opinion, there's no better place to be.
I'm so happy you said that, because I totally agree with you. I'm seeing all the solutions that are out there, and I'm not going to name names, but they assume that everybody needs therapy. And I'm like, everybody does not need therapy. There's other ways you can go about it. And so I'm like, why are we assuming that? I don't want to assume that. I agree with you. I think movement, Pilates, yoga, meditation, these are all really, really helpful tools that work for some people.
Yes, it does.
I don't want to assume things.
I really enjoyed that alignment talk that you said, Britt. Like, I think it's key, so with you, you said you did acupuncture, meditation. So I implore everyone to really take what Britt said and find whatever is going to help you find your alignment, so whether it's going to church, whether it's joining a certain group, whether it's sports, playing sports, working out, I really implore people that if therapy is not for you, find what your therapy is. Find what's going to help you to align yourself, what's going to bring that balance.
I say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thank you for acknowledging that. But I want to point out too, like, mindful movement can be the gym, like you suggested,
yes,
or it can be going to church, or it can be going to, going on the Stairmaster or whatever it may be. The difference between just like exercise per se and mindful movement is the intentionality behind it. And it's opportunities to practice that specificity. Is like, why am I showing up for this?
I like that a lot. That's really good. Now, Greg, talk to our audience a little bit about warning signs. What are the warning signs for those around you who may be having suicidal thoughts? I want to make sure that we catch it, especially for all the fraternity members that are listening, the sorority members that are listening. There are people around us, and we need to train people in what those warning signs are.
Very, very important question. Going back to how Ed opened, I really appreciated his opening, and obviously shared a lot of different aspects there. But we are living in a heavy world. We're living in a world of tragedy and of constant headlines and just being bombarded with negativity, but at the same time, reality. It's not just, it is reality. And so as we're operating kind of individually in a world that's not always pleasant, right? It's not always perfect. We need to acknowledge the reality that some of us around us, maybe it's us, or maybe it's those around us, maybe it's people we're super close to, or maybe acquaintances with, are struggling, to Mike's point. And there's different degrees of struggling, right? There's, hey, I'm having a bad day. There's, hey, I'm kind of really in a tough place. I'm in a depression. I'm struggling with this or that. And then there's, ideally, the kind of that next level, which is, somebody who is like legitimately, being bogged down by suicidal ideation. And so that is, to answer that question, I mean, the warning signs come in different ways. I'll touch on them a little bit, but to summarize all of them under one umbrella as simply as I can, you're going to want to look for a change in behavior. So that can look like a lot of different things. That can look like somebody's physical appearance looks, not that they're like a beautiful or flawless person or whatever, but just it looks off or looks different or looks significantly like just noticeable. It could be, hey, this person's not showing up to things anymore. This person's not, showing up to work or showing up to this group or showing up to our, adult league basketball games or whatever it is, right? It could be just negative talk, negative self-talk, joking about death. That's another one. Offering to give things away. Like if they're just kind of like giving like important or valuable things away, That's a really big indicator. Increase of substance use and drug abuse, things like that. So that's just a few. But again, like, you're going to want to look for some sort of relatively concerning change in behavior. And that can come in literally 100 different ways. So it's just learning to be attentive. It's learning to be observant, but also not like, oh, this person's having a bad day, time to call the suicide prevention hotline. Like, there is a balance of making sure we're not running to jump to conclusions right away, but also supporting them. And, you know, as kind of the receiver, right, as the friend or as the observer, like, there's ways we can sort of support in a gentle way. And a lot of that has to do with open-ended questions. So, hey, how are you, man? Like, how's the last couple of weeks been? You know, is there anything you need? You know, how are you doing right now? What's going to be helpful for you if that person is struggling? So just open-ended questions that kind of puts the ball in their court a little bit to let them do the talking.
I like that a lot. That's really good. Now, Edson, I know you recently got your mental health first aid certification. I'm certified as well. I think it's a fantastic certification to get. How do you have that difficult conversation if we see someone around us showing those warning signs that Greg just outlined for us?
Yes. Just to mention your point, I did get mental health first aid certified. See that 2 times fast. You know, so, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot. It was a really, you know, eye-opening training that I did. And one of the things we learned is called algae. And, you know, each letter breaks down how you kind of have those conversational kind of break down how to support and help someone. So when I did the training, they made it very clear on several different times. Like, I think after the 10th time, I lost count how many times they made it clear. But they made it clear that we're not therapists or professionals, so we shouldn't be like, you know, giving any medication or prescribing different things. Like, we're really being trained is really helping us to try to have those conversations and doing our best to support others to provide those support and to provide the resources that they need. So with algae, it's a great way to kind of help you in regards to having those conversations. So A stands for assessing the risk of harm. You know, so try your best to assess what's going on. So we watched a video, and in the video, there was a woman having a panic attack, and there was a male there, and he saw her, and he realized something was a bit off. So he asked her, hey, are you okay? You know, how's everything going? And she mentioned, I'm kind of having a panic attack. And he said, hey, I'm here for you. Do you want me to stay? Do you want me to step out? I can be around the corner. He was assessing the situation with the individual, you know, and as the video went on, she said, please stay. And he just kind of talked her through breathing stuff and talked her through the situation to help her get through her panic attack. So that's one thing to do, just assess the situation and really see what you can do to really help with the individual that you're speaking with. The second thing is listening. That's what the L stands for, but it's not just listening. You need to be listening carefully, and most importantly, listen non-judgmentally. Make sure that as you're listening, that you're really providing an atmosphere to where they're able to really voice and really say how they're feeling. And as you're listening, you're able to hear what they're saying to help provide that support for them. And as you're listening, this will lean into G, which stands for giving reassurance. Just giving them the reassurance and assuring them that they're okay, you know, reassuring what resources they have, you know, just telling them that I'm here for you. And just giving that assurance that, you know, you're definitely everything is going to be okay, which will lead to G, not G, I just said G, which will lead to E, which is encourage appropriate professional help. You know, so as you're speaking with them saying, hey, I'm here for you, I want to support you. Have you thought about seeing a therapist, or have you thought about doing ways to, what are different things that you think that can be helpful for you? Because as we just talked about today, not everyone needs or wants therapy. So when you're talking about seeking a professional help, talking about what type of professional help works best for them. So providing resources for them to see what professional help they need and what will work best for them. Maybe they might try therapy and they're like, you know what, therapy is not for me, you know, or they'll try this and it's not for me, and try this and like, oh, I like this. This is what I'm going to do. And then the final E for Algae is to encourage self-help and support strategies. So really encouraging them to really practice self-care. You know, whatever helps them find who they are, get back to their center, makes them happy, brings a smile to their face, like whatever that person enjoys doing, really promoting the importance of having self-care and really, you know, finding ways to love you. You can't love anyone if you can't love yourself. You know, it all starts with you as an individual, you know, so you definitely have to find ways, avenues, whatever that is, that's going to provide that self-care for you, that's going to make you happy and that's going to bring you joy. You know, when we're in a funk, as we talked about earlier, we feel like we're alone and we feel like that nothing can be done. And I want to let people know that you are in control of your life and your situation that you're in. If you're unhappy, you can make a change to get to that place to where you are happy. You can get to that place to where you are satisfied or you're successful or whatever you need to do. You just need to find the ways and resources that are going to help you get there, or the people that are going to help you get there. So I want people to see that they are never alone. And also that if you're in a situation to where you're really not happy or you're in a place where you don't think you should be at, you have the power and you have the control and you have the ability to change that and make it better. So that's all I got.
I love it. You gave me
Mic
a lot of
drop.
hope.
Mic
Yeah,
drop.
that's right. That's right. That's really good. Now, Britt, I think we need to talk about social media. I mean, I'm following you at Britt Loves Smoothies, you know, but it feels like the digital culture adds this extra layer of pressure on students. So how do we create a digital wellness plan?
Before I answer that, can I ask Edson a quick question?
Of course.
Edson, have you ever practiced a metta meditation before?
I've done some form of meditation, but I don't think I've done that.
It's a Buddhist meditation. It's a loving kindness meditation, but sometime I will walk you through that because it speaks on the importance of loving yourself so you can love others around you. I thought it was really beautiful, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. I mean, yeah, I mean, I say it because I've struggled with it because, I mean, I'll be very honest. There's times where I haven't loved myself and loved who I am. Mm-hmm. And when I've gone through my tough times, I blamed everyone, realizing that it's not them or what's ever going on in the world, it's me. You know, yes, are there people that sometimes don't get me or try to get me or don't understand me or take things out of context that, yes, people do that from time to time, but, you know, but a lot of times that some of that does come from me, and I have to own that, you know, as much as I feel that I can be misunderstood at times, I have to also own that sometimes it's on me as well, you know, so I just want to, you know, so owning that there's times where I have not loved myself, it's been hard for me to love others. So I just want to let people know that, you know, it starts with you. So, you know, T.O., Terrell Owens, he'd always say on the sidelines, I love me some me.
I remember that loud and clear.
I love me some me. And I've done that sometimes. I'll look in the mirror and I'd be like, I love me some me. So, you know, so to everyone out there, like,
I'm gonna stop that.
You know, like he always said, I love me some me. So, you know, look in the mirror and say, I love me some me.
Well, T.O. definitely loves himself. I remember when he was doing crunches on his driveway, trying to get a contract with his shirt off. And I'm like, yeah, he loves me some me, all right.
He was one of a kind, that's for sure.
All right, Mike, I'll go back to your question. How do you create a digital wellness plan? I think digital wellness plans are not optional for people. I think they're absolutely essential. And why doing that? Because like I said earlier, we're constantly bombarded by so much consumption, both physically and metaphorically. And I think creating spaces in your day where you put a screen aside, so you put the phone aside, you put the computer aside, and even if you schedule it in and it's 5 minutes, and you do something in place of it, like stepping outside and taking a breath, or just placing one hand on your heart, one hand on your stomach, coming back to your breath, or just mindlessly not doing anything, where you're not constantly being distracted, or even unfollowing people. Like, do self audits, do weekly self audits where you check in and you're like, okay, I'm following X, Y, and Z. Is this serving my highest good? Do these people make me feel good? And no judgment towards those people if they're not, but if they're not, you have the power to remove them from your space. And I really do believe we are the 5 people we spend the most time with. And I don't think that just includes who we spend physical time with, but who we follow on social media and what books we read and what music we listen to. Everything we're taking in is a representation of who we're becoming. So, kind of the theme amongst this whole conversation here is like, take agency. And I empower you to realize like you have the power to create a lot of positive change within your space, despite how much is out of our control, which is pretty much everything. There are certain things that you can do, and this is one of them, to monitor what's coming in.
I love it. That's so important.
I can piggyback off this one for sure. So what I hear you say is basically make decisions to have healthy boundaries. Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to share this. So this is actually just like a week or two ago, I heard about this. It was one of those like Instagram reels. Here we are talking about social media, but I got a helpful piece off of social media. Does anybody know who Jay Shetty is?
No.
Yes.
Jay Shetty. So he's a big, I don't even know what you call him. I mean, he's a big author. He's a big,
he's a very impactful thought leader.
Yeah, he's a thought leader. He's a thought leader. I wouldn't say in America. I would say across the world. You'll have to look him up. He's an interesting guy, and he's fairly young, probably in his 30s, I'd say. So anyways, he's getting interviewed, and this is on the concept of social media and boundaries and making decisions and all that. And I can't remember the question that the lady asked him, but he basically responded saying, would you wake up, your alarm goes off, right? 6:30 in the morning, and 100 people walk into your bedroom, like walk into your house and walk in your bedroom. You wouldn't allow that, right? Like, correct? You wouldn't allow that?
Nope.
No, you wouldn't allow that. So why do we wake up, open our phone, and allow 100 people into our life?
It's a great point.
And I'm like, dang, that is like so true. Like, and sure, it's like, yes, social media is there. Like, we are allowing people, it has a purpose. It's good. Like, I'm not saying remove all your social media. I'm on it. I think it has value, but I'm actually particularly talking to the time of day. I think there's something to be said about, is that the first action you're doing awake on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, opening social media, rather than, I don't know, doing like getting your dog some dog food, or like, making a cup of coffee or something like it. That you don't need to, have this, phenomenal ritual that lasts an hour or anything like that. But are you creeping towards news lines and just distractions and all that on your screen first? And I can say sometimes I'm guilty of that. So Jay Shetty helped me out on that one.
No, I'm glad you said that, because something I speak on is developing a morning mental health toolkit and like the reasons I believe in that. But like, one of my main things is not looking at your phone first thing in the morning. And you said it, letting 100 people in, but also from a scientific perspective, The second you look at your phone, you automatically go into fight or flight mode for your nervous system. And so just automatically by looking at a screen, you're doing that. Why would you want to do that? And then in setting boundaries, it is doing other little things like, you know, if you can, I know a lot of kids are in dorms, but if you can sleep with your phone outside of your room or turn it on airplane mode or not look at it for 30 minutes before you go to bed. Like there are so many things that you can do to just minimize usage.
It all adds up. It's a domino effect for sure.
Yeah, I love it. My morning routine is feed the cats, have a cup of coffee, and work out in that order. So the phone's like whatever. It doesn't even exist in my world until all that's done. I love it. Greg, one more question for you. I want you to talk a little bit about the power of sharing our experiences. Can we get to a point, do you think, in our fraternities where men and being vulnerable with each other is happening, and maybe even normalize a mental health conversation in our chapter meeting? Is that realistic?
I do think it is realistic. Going back to sharing our stories and our experiences, it doesn't necessarily mean you gotta, create some, just a mind-catching, phenomenal, presentation on your life or anything like that. It could just be like, hey, you identify somebody who's struggling and like, boom, you share one little snippet of your life that can relate to them. Like that is the power of sharing a story. It can come in different ways. It can come in a social media post. It can come on, speaker being on stage, or a person writing an article, or different ways, or just, conversations over coffee. It can totally come in different ways. So the power in that is you are suddenly relating to that person in a way that is very real, because you're basically putting down the wall. You're putting down the false perception, and you're inviting them into what is reality, what is normal life. And you're providing an opportunity for them to evaluate their own life and make a decision to do so as well. And that is super empowering. And it's also creates a lot of freedom, a lot of mental freedom to sort of operate in a vulnerable way. So I think sharing our stories really provides an opportunity for others to not be chained down by their circumstances or their thoughts or their doubts. What they choose to do with it, different story, but it provides that opportunity. So when it comes to fraternities and sororities, yeah, I think it's certainly possible. And it goes back to a point I made earlier on, it takes one voice to be one domino has to fall first before the others fall next. And so could it be the president? Sure. But could it just be a general member of the fraternity? Absolutely. And maybe it's experience-based. Maybe it's story-based. Maybe it's, hey, the fraternity is aware that this brother is struggling with something, and that brother is courageous enough to share about it or something, right? Like, I do think we can come to a point where it is normalized, where it is a part of the day-to-day, where it's not like, hey, we're going through our chapter meeting, we're going through our protocols, and then, let's set like 20 minutes aside to like talk about depression. Like, it doesn't need to be weird. It can just be organic, and just like, just like life is like good, bad, and ugly. Like it doesn't need to be sort of this one-off, like, here's your therapy session, Mr. Johnny, and XYZ sorority or fraternity, like doesn't need to be like that. So yeah, I think it's just being natural with it, understanding that it's okay for people to not be okay all the time, and to have struggles, and to also just rally around them in kindness around those times.
Yeah, I agree with you, Greg, 100%. The vulnerability and opening up, and people really don't understand the power of vulnerability and really what it brings to the table. As Brene Brown defines vulnerability, it's uncertainty and risk, but vulnerability is a true asset to show of your courage. So it definitely shows the courage in you, to really speak up and to really share and own your story, and to provide the atmosphere to where people feel okay to share or to realize that everything is okay and stuff like that. So there is going to be some uncertainty. There is going to be some risk, but with that comes, in my opinion, great reward. Sometimes does it get kind of skewed a little bit? Yeah, but you can always bring it back and stuff like that. So I definitely agree with you as far as I can see it happening. It's just gonna have to take that open-mindedness and just as you said, like not making it weird or feel, oh my God, like why do we have to talk about this? Is like because it's important, and you don't understand how important it is because you might be saving your brother or your sister's life.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
That vulnerability is key. I mean, even if we just went around the room at the end of the meeting and just talked about maybe one thing that we struggled with this week and one thing that was really great about the last week, something as simple as that, without saying it's our therapy session now. If we all went around the room and talked about that, then we would probably realize that other people around us are struggling just like we're struggling. And then number two, like what somebody else is struggling with, and maybe that starts a conversation after the meeting to say, hey, I've been there, like I know exactly what you're going through, right? And just having those conversations about how we can support each other. So I really love this conversation. This was just really, really amazing. So I thank you so much for contributing here today. I mean, if you want to bring any of our speakers to your campus and have these types of conversations, talk about mental health, please visit the Greek University website. Check out Edson O'Neale, Britt Turpack, and Greg Vogt. They are just phenomenal speakers. And what can I say? I'm very honored and humbled to be able to work with them here at Greek University. So thank you so much, everybody, for your contributions today. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. It's been a joy.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. All right. Well, thanks so much to our listeners. If you enjoyed this, please make sure that you share it. Please make sure that you like it on social media. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.